Right now, as you are listening to this, a perfect cone of fire and rock is literally tearing itself apart in the Philippines. Mayon Volcano, famous for its symmetrical beauty, has transformed into a relentless engine of geological chaos. We are currently 40 days into an eruption cycle that refuses to quit, and the numbers coming out of the Bicol region are frankly terrifying. Over 80,000 people have been forced to leave their homes, leaving behind their livelihoods and their land to escape an escalating threat that scientists are now tracking through a massive spike in toxic gas, discharging 5,503 tons in a single 24-hour window. This isn't just a local event. It is a global scientific phenomenon that is testing the limits of volcanology and disaster response. To understand why Mayon is so dangerous, you have to look at its history. This is the most active volcano in the Philippines, a country that sits right on the edge of the Pacific Ring of Fire. Mayon is what we call a stratovolcano. Its iconic shape was built over thousands of years by layer upon layer of hardened lava and volcanic ash. But that beauty is a mask for a very violent internal pressure cooker. For the last 40 days, the volcano has been in a state of high unrest, characterized by what scientists call a quiet eruption that is rapidly becoming anything but quiet. It started with relatively small movements of magma, but it has accelerated into a full-blown crisis that has darkened the skies over Albay province. When we talk about 5,503 tons of sulfur dioxide, imagine thousands of industrial trucks dumping pure toxic gas into the atmosphere every single day. Sulfur dioxide, or SO₂, is one of the most critical indicators scientists use to predict what a volcano will do next. High SO₂ levels mean that magma is very close to the surface and that the plumbing of the volcano is open. When the gas can escape in such massive quantities, it suggests that there is a huge volume of fresh, gas-rich magma pushing up from deep within the Earth's crust. This isn't old material being recycled. This is new, high-energy magma that is fueling a persistent and growing eruption. The impact of this gas on the local population is immediate and severe. It creates a thick, acidic haze known as fog or volcanic smog. This fog can travel for miles, causing respiratory issues, stinging eyes, and damaging crops. For the 80,000 evacuees sitting in crowded shelters, the gas is a constant reminder that they cannot go home yet. The physiological stress of breathing in this high concentration of sulfur is a secondary disaster unfolding alongside the physical threat of the lava. Scientists are monitoring the wind patterns constantly, because a shift in the breeze can send this 15-year high gas plume directly into major population centers. But let's talk about the physical movement of the mountain. Mayon is literally swelling. Using high-precision GPS and tiltmeters, the Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology, or PHIVOCs, has detected a sustained inflation of the volcanic edifice. The mountain is expanding like a balloon because of the pressure of the magma inside. When you combine this physical swelling with the record-breaking gas emissions, the scientific community gets very nervous. It suggests that the 40-day eruption we have seen so far might just be the opening act for something much more explosive. For the people on the ground, the reality is a mix of awe and terror. At night, Mayon glows with a haunting red light. This is the incandescence of the lava dome and the rockfall events. As the magma reaches the top, it forms a viscous dome that eventually becomes too heavy and collapses under its own weight. This sends glowing boulders, some as big as houses, tumbling down the slopes. These are known as pyroclastic density currents, or PDCs. They are essentially avalanches of hot gas, ash and volcanic rock that can move at speeds of over 60 miles per hour. If you are in the path of a PDC, there is no outrunning it. This is why the 7-kilometer danger zone is being strictly enforced. The displacement of 80,000 people is a monumental logistical challenge. We are talking about farmers who have had to leave their carabaos and their crops behind. We are talking about children who are attending school in temporary tents. The social cost of a 40-day eruption is immense. In many cases, families are reluctant to leave because they fear losing everything they own to ashfall or looting. But the local government has been firm, with the SO₂ levels hitting 15-year highs. The risk of a sudden vertical eruption, an explosion that sends a column of ash miles into the sky, is too high to ignore. Scientific teams are using drones to get a closer look at the crater. These drones are equipped with thermal cameras and gas sensors, allowing volcanologists to see inside the heat without putting human lives at risk. What they are seeing is a crater that is constantly changing. The lava dome is growing at an incredible rate, and the fractures on the summit are widening. This data is fed into supercomputers to model potential eruption scenarios. Will it stay as a slow lava flow, or will the plug finally blow, resulting in a cataclysmic event? The 15-year high in gas emission is the biggest clue we have that the pressure is not being relieved fast enough. Let's dive into the chemistry of that gas for a moment. Sulfur dioxide doesn't just stay as a gas. It turns into sulfuric acid. This leads to acid rain, which can strip the leaves off trees and contaminate local water sources. For a region that relies heavily on agriculture, particularly coconut and abaca farming, this is a long-term economic disaster. The ashfall itself is also a problem. Unlike the soft ash you might see in a fireplace, volcanic ash is actually tiny shards of glass and pulverized rock. It is heavy, it is abrasive, and it can collapse roofs if it gets wet. We are seeing a slow-motion destruction of the landscape around Mayon. The geological context of Mayon is part of what makes it so fascinating to researchers. It is located at a subduction zone, where the Philippine Sea Plate is being pushed beneath the Philippine Mobile Belt. This process creates a lot of heat and friction, melting the rock into magma. This magma is rich in silica, which makes it sticky or viscous. Sticky magma is dangerous because it traps gases. Instead of the gas bubbling out smoothly as it does in Hawaiian volcanoes, the gas in Mayon builds up pressure until it forces its way out. That is why the 5,500-ton measurement is so significant. It shows the sheer power of the engine driving this eruption. One of the most concerning things about the current 40-day streak is the lull periods. Every few days, the volcano seems to quiet down, and the tremors decrease. But then, the SO₂ levels spike again, and the mountain begins to groan. Scientists call this a pulsatory eruption. It is like the volcano is catching its breath before another push. These lulls can be deceptive, leading people to think it is safe to return to the danger zone. Local authorities are fighting a constant battle against evacuation fatigue, trying to convince 80,000 people to stay in shelters when the volcano looks calm to the naked eye. The 2023 to 2024 eruption cycle of Mayon is being compared to some of its most famous historical events. In 1814, Mayon had its most destructive eruption, which buried entire towns under volcanic debris. While we are nowhere near that level of tragedy yet, the geological markers, the gas, the tilt, and the seismic activity are being watched for any signs that history might repeat itself. The 15-year high in gas is a major red flag that this cycle is far more energetic than the minor eruptions we have seen over the last decade. Let's talk about the seismic data. For 40 days, the area around Mayon has been vibrating. These aren't just big earthquakes that everyone feels. These are volcanic tremors, a constant hum caused by the movement of magma through the Earth's crust. It is like the plumbing in an old house rattling when the water is turned on too high. Seismologists are tracking hundreds of these tremors every day. They specifically look for low-frequency earthquakes, which are often a precursor to a large explosive event. Currently, the seismographs are showing a steady increase in energy, matching the increase in gas emissions. Behind the scenes, the Philippine government and international agencies are working to manage the humanitarian side. 80,000 people in shelters requires a massive amount of food. Imagine trying to live in a basketball gym with hundreds of other people while a volcano is essentially sneezing toxic dust outside. The resilience of the Bicolano people is legendary, but even that resilience has its limits as the eruption enters its second month. The scientific discovery aspect of this event is also significant. Modern volcanic monitoring has never been better. We are getting real-time satellite data from the European Space Agency's Sentinel satellites, which can measure ground deformation from space. We are seeing heat maps of the volcano that show exactly where the magma is highest. This eruption is one of the most well-documented geological events in history. Every ton of SO₂ measured, and every millimeter of ground shift recorded, provides data that will help predict eruptions at other stratovolcanoes around the world, from Mount Rainier in Washington state to Mount Fuji in Japan. Why is the 15-year high important? Because 15 years ago, in 2009, Mayon had a major eruptive episode that necessitated the evacuation of tens of thousands and lasted for months. By hitting that same level of gas output now, Mayon is signaling that it has the same fuel as it did during one of its most active modern periods. It tells us that the magma chamber is wide open and that the recharge rate, the speed at which new magma is coming from the mantle, is extremely high. We aren't looking at a dying eruption. We are looking at one that is still in its prime. The physical hazards are also evolving. As the monsoon rains hit the Philippines, a new threat emerges: lahars. A lahar is a volcanic mudflow, and they are terrifying, carrying boulders and trees. All the ash and debris that Mayon has coughed out over the last 40 days is sitting on its steep slopes. When heavy rain falls, it mixes with that ash and turns into a slurry that can bury entire villages in minutes. The authorities are now monitoring rain gauges just as closely as they monitor the volcano itself. The 80,000 evacuees are effectively living in a state of suspended animation. Markets are struggling because the farmers can't reach their fields. This is the hidden cost of a volcano. It's not just the lava, it's the total disruption of a society. The government is trying to implement tent cities to move people out of schools, but the volcanic gas makes even that difficult. You can't put people in tents if the air quality index is in the hazardous range. The SO₂ levels are also a major concern for aviation. Volcanic gas and ash can cause jet engines to fail. The airspace around Mayon is a no-fly zone for a reason. Pilots have to be diverted around the plume, which is now reaching altitudes that can interfere with commercial flight paths. This creates a ripple effect of delays and increased fuel costs across Southeast Asia. It is a reminder that a mountain in a rural province of the Philippines can have a direct impact on global logistics. As we look at the current state of Mayon, we have to ask what comes next. There are three main possibilities: slowly bleeding out its energy through lava flows and high gas emissions. The second is that the activity gradually declines, and the 80,000 people can finally go home. At alert level 3, the Philippines is preparing for all three, but the focus is heavily on the explosive scenario. For the viewers interested in scientific discoveries, the way we are measuring these SO₂ levels is a marvel. We use an instrument called a THEIC, or correlation spectrometer, and more modern versions called DAOS, which stands for differential optical absorption spectroscopy. These devices look at the light from the sun as it passes through the volcanic plume. Because different gases absorb different wavelengths of light, scientists can tell exactly how much sulfur is in the air just by analyzing the shadows in the light spectrum. This allows for constant, safe monitoring from kilometers away. Without this technology, we would have no idea that we have hit a 5,503-ton peak until it was perhaps too late. The role of the lava dome is another fascinating piece of the puzzle. Think of the lava dome as a cork in a champagne bottle. If the lava is very thick, it stays in the crater and blocks the gas. This causes the pressure to build up inside the mountain. Right now, because the SO₂ levels are so high, it means the cork is leaky. This is actually a good thing in the short term, because it means pressure is being released. However, if the gas levels suddenly drop while the mountain is still swelling, that would be the most dangerous sign possible. It would mean the leak has been plugged, and a massive explosion is imminent. The logistical feat of caring for 80,000 people for over 40 days cannot be overstated. The Philippine government, along with groups like the Red Cross and various international partners, is struggling to maintain sanitation and health standards in the evacuation centers. There is a psychological toll to this as well. Living under the constant shadow of a volcano that could explode at any moment creates a level of chronic stress that researchers are now studying to better understand how to support communities in volcanic zones. What makes Mayon unique among the world's volcanoes is its persistence. Many volcanoes have a sharp explosion and then go back to sleep. Mayon tends to linger. It is a marathon runner, not a sprinter. This 40-day eruption is consistent with its historical behavior of long, drawn-out periods of activity. But the sheer volume of gas we are seeing now is what sets this apart. It indicates a level of deep crustal activity that we haven't seen in this area for a generation. The ash being ejected by Mayon is also being sampled and analyzed in labs. By looking at the crystals inside the ash, geologists can determine the temperature and pressure at which the magma was formed. This is like looking at the DNA of the eruption. It tells us if the magma is coming from a shallow chamber or a very deep one. Recent reports suggest that the magma at Mayon is coming from quite deep, which supports the idea that this eruption could have a lot of stamina left. We also have to consider the global perspective. Large eruptions can actually influence the climate. While Mayon is not currently releasing enough gas to cool the planet, like Mount Pinatubo did in 1991, it is contributing to the overall sulfur load of the atmosphere. If this eruption were to scale up significantly, it could have minor effects on regional weather patterns by creating more cloud cover through sulfate aerosols. The local economy of Albay is built on the fertility of volcanic soil. Volcanic ash is full of minerals like potassium and phosphorus, which is why the area around Mayon is so green and productive. It is a catch-22 for the residents. The very thing that threatens their lives is also the thing that makes their land worth living on. This volcanic dependency is a common theme in human history. But in the 40 days of this current eruption, the mountain is showing its more destructive side. For the 80,000 people currently in shelters, the question of when is the only one that matters. When can we go back? When will the school reopen? When will the mountain stop glowing? Science can only give probabilities, not certainties. The high SO₂ levels mean the mountain is still breathing heavily, and as long as that continues, the risk of a sudden escalation remains high. The authorities are leaning on the side of caution, prioritizing the preservation of life over the desire for normality. It's also worth noting the role of social media and real-time reporting in this crisis. People are sharing live streams of the volcano from their phones, providing a level of crowd-sourced monitoring we've never had before. This creates a more informed public, but it also spreads rumors. ERUPTS has had to act as a source of truth, constantly debunking fake news about imminent tsunamis or mega-explosions that aren't supported by the data. The 15-year high in gas is a real recorded fact, and they are using that fact to keep the public focused on the actual dangers. Looking at the drone footage of the summit, the devastation of the immediate area is clear. The once green peak is now a gray, scarred landscape of ash and cooling lava. The perfect cone is being deformed by the new material being piled on top. This is the Earth in its most raw form. It is a reminder that we live on a planet that is still cooling and still shifting. The 80,000 people displaced by Mayon are on the front lines of this geological reality. The sheer mass of 5,503 tons of gas per day also means that the local flora and fauna are being decimated. Birds cannot fly through the sulfur plumes, and the insects that pollinate the crops are being wiped out in the immediate vicinity. The silent impact of the gas on the environment is something that will take years to recover from, long after the lava has stopped flowing. As scientists continue to monitor the 40-day eruption, they are watching for a phenomenon called magma mixing. This happens when new, hot magma hits a reservoir of older, cooler magma. This can cause a sudden, violent reaction, much like pouring water into a hot pan of oil. And the potential for a mixed event is something that keeps volcanologists up at night. The international community is watching Mayon closely because it is a textbook volcano. Everything it does follows the models of stratovolcano behavior perfectly, which makes it an ideal place to test new theories. From the way the gas is released to the way the ground tilts, it is not a textbook, it is their life. They are waiting for the 15-year high to drop, for the mountain to go quiet, and for the red glow to finally fade from the sky. The story of Mayon's 40-day eruption is one of incredible scientific data clashing with a massive human crisis. It is a story of 5,503 tons of gas and 80,000 stories of displacement. As we move into the next phase of this eruption, the world will be watching, waiting to see if the symmetrical beauty of Mayon will return, or if the mountain is about to reshape itself, and the lives of everyone around it forever. The resilience of the provincial management is also highlighted here. They have decades of experience with Mayon, and their evacuation protocols are some of the best in the world. Despite the high risks and the huge number of people, they have managed to keep everyone safe. The 15-year high in SO₂ could have been a much bigger disaster if not for the quick action taken 40 days ago when the first signs of unrest appeared. This is a success story in disaster mitigation, even as the geological threat continues to grow. Every day, the Albay Public Safety and Emergency Management Office provides updates on food rations, health checks, and the status of the volcano. They are managing a city's worth of people in temporary conditions. The cost is high, but the alternative, leaving 80,000 people in the path of a potential 15-year peak eruption, is unthinkable. The cooperation between the scientists and the local leaders is what is preventing this crisis from becoming a major tragedy. As we conclude this deep dive into the ongoing eruption of Mayon, It's clear that we are witnessing a significant moment in geological history. The 40 days of activity, the 80,000 evacuees, and the 15-year high in sulfur dioxide are all parts of a complex and dangerous puzzle. Whether Mayon is preparing for a final big blast or a slow return to dormancy, the data gathered here will change how we understand volcanoes for years to come. The mountain is speaking, and the world is finally learning how to listen. Stay tuned as we continue to track the movement of the magma and the levels of gas coming from the heart of the Philippines. The situation is fluid, the risks are high, and the science is more important than ever. Mayon is a reminder of the power beneath our feet, a power that we can only hope to understand and respect. For now, the 80,000 remain in wait, hoping for the day the spirit of the mountain finally rests.